The morning of March 13th, 2019, was misty and cold in Rainier, Oregon. From midnight until sunrise, the temperature hovered around 40 degrees. Sometime between 3:30 and 4 a.m., a construction worker drove his pickup down the winding rural road where the Zubers live. He later told police he saw nothing on the side of the road. Around 5:30 a.m., Sarah Zuber's father, Randy, pulled out of the driveway. He took a right out on the road, passing the spot where his daughter's body would be found hours later. He saw nothing. Cars kept coming. At 6:30 a.m., a woman drove down the road to work. She saw nothing. At 7 a.m., a man walked his dog by the Zuber's house. He paused and watched a big herd of elk pass by. But again, like all the others, he did not see Sarah Zuber lying on the side of the road. Presumably, people drove and walked by that spot where Sarah lay all morning. I've seen the photos of where she was found. She wasn't down in a ditch or tucked into underbrush. She was face up, just off the road's shoulder. It seems like someone should know something about what happened to Sarah, should have seen something. But each theory pursued by the police and the community, and to some extent the media, has failed to produce a solid answer for how she died. The police can't explain how Sarah ended up on the side of the road. The community, helmed by Jennifer Massey, has other theories. She thinks Sarah was hit by a car. The media, which is in such a state of disarray in Columbia County, has struggled to bring forward new information at all. And honestly, as journalists, we were having a hard time finding any substantial facts too. One day, Ryan and I stared at a whiteboard in the OPB office where we went around and around about where to take our reporting next.
I think we have to talk to the Zubers about that. It's a lot of people have promised you answers. And I think
and we may be
one part where we tried to be pretty explicit is I don't know if I can promise you answers. I'm not
I think that could be what we say. For a year, we gave this a pretty good shake, and we are at the same spot as everybody else. So maybe there's no answer. We're not saying we're the best. There could be other people that could find it, but perhaps there is no answer.
I don't know. There's an answer. I mean, there's something happened to her. There's a fucking answer. There is an answer.
We figured if we were going to stand in for the media in this county, we had to run down all of the police and community theories to their furthest possible point. When we did, we uncovered things that have never been revealed about this case. And our understanding of what happened to Sarah would change completely. From Oregon Public Broadcasting, this is Hush. I'm Leah Satilli. This is episode 6, Persons Unknown. Before we go any further, I think it's a good time to review the few known facts of Sarah's last day. On the night of March 12, 2019, Sarah clocked out of work at 9:31 p.m. Katie Zuber texted her older sister and asked her to bring her a diet cream soda.
They used to sell them in the bottle at Chevron, but she brought me home a fountain drink, with ice in it, in one of those paper Coke cups. And that's one thing I'm where did she go to get that? Because there's nowhere in town that has a soda machine that has diet cream soda.
Sarah went somewhere to buy that soda, and she got home about an hour later, around 10:30 p.m. Then Sarah and Katie got into an argument.
We had a little disagreement, and then she went in her room to get her earbuds or whatever. And then I was okay, I'm gonna take a shower. And
could you have seen it in her to be upset about whatever happened and go in her room and slam some drinks and go outside? Or do you think there was even time for that to have happened?
Yeah, I don't think that she would have done that. I think that she would have gone in her room and put like her earbuds in and listened to music and then gone out. Like, I really don't think that she would have gone in her room and chugged a bunch of vodka and then gone outside. I never knew her to deal with anger that way.
Katie insisted Sarah wasn't drunk when she left for a walk around 10:50 p.m. About 7 minutes later, Sarah sent 2 garbled messages to her boyfriend, Vishal, and to a Facebook group chat. Both of those messages were misspelled, so we can't say for sure what they meant. A half hour later, at 11:32 p.m., Sarah's phone died. Investigators found it wet and in her pocket the next day. The cops don't know Sarah's exact time of death, but the time of her phone dying is one theory, and it's one of the last data points they have. Then, 12 and a half hours later, at noon on March 13th, Katie found her sister dead. Okay, so that's what we know. 6 months into our reporting, we'd spent hundreds of hours reading documents and making phone calls. And one person kept coming up in police reports, a person who came up when we first talked to Jennifer Massey. It's probably pretty clear at this point, but there's not a lot that the Columbia County Sheriff's Office and Jennifer agree on. She believes the sheriff's office did a lackluster job investigating Sarah's death. But they've both entertained the idea that one guy could be responsible for a hit and run. One day, she brought it up when we were talking to her in downtown St. Helens.
And you guys went back and saw like the audio, heard the audio and the video. I think something's going to come of that for sure.
What audio? What video?
For the car. There's Carnahan. How are you?
Car. Do you know what she's talking about?
The surveillance video of the car.
She was referring to the video taken by a security camera on a property down the road from the Zubers that showed headlights going past.
They're like watching.
Yeah, the 1.4 miles away.
I see. Okay. You think something's gonna come of that?
Absolutely.
What do you think's gonna come of that?
I think he's the person. I think that
Okay.
Well, don't say that out loud, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I won't change it.
Okay. I mean, you'll tell us
Absolutely.
when something or if something
I'm just
happens.
saying
Okay.
that something's happening. Like, I feel like
Okay. All right. Keep us posted.
this is going to be an insane, like, series here. Like, this is a wild one.
Back when we first sat down with Jennifer in her office, she shared her hit-and-run theory, which she thought was supported by the security camera footage from down the road. We took a closer look at that tape in episode 3 and realized what Jennifer and her group of citizen sleuths thought was a video of a car speeding down the road was actually just the footage on fast forward. But there's actually more to Jennifer's theory.
She left at like 10:50. She used to walk about a half mile. So our hypothesis is, which is really good circumstantial evidence, is that she left her house, around 10:50. She, the way that she was facing probably was on her way back. And we think she got hit at 11:27. We think the car was caught on camera, which mathematically works at 11:29 because it's 1.4 miles away and it's windy. And her phone it was a Samsung track phone I think she got it at Walmart that, when we called them, it had no water repellent. We also found audio footage of the 63-year-old.
The Justice for Sarah Zuber group found a tip in the police files about a guy in Rainier we'll call Nick. We aren't comfortable using his real name because he hasn't been charged with a crime. Nick has a violent record, and he also has a track record of drunk driving and hit and runs. In the police files, there was a phone call to the police tip line in the days after Sarah died that caught Jennifer's attention.
My grandson does work crew, and he said, Grandma, he says, I have to tell you something. He says, and he told me what happened at work crew. And I said, it really should be reported.
Yeah.
He didn't want to get in any trouble. And I said, you know what, I will report it myself.
Okay.
This woman's tip was about her grandson overhearing a phone call about another phone call, where a woman supposedly said she was in the car with Nick the night Sarah died. Nick was drunk driving down her road. The woman thought Nick hit something, but they didn't go back to look. It's a game of telephone. A call about a call about a call. Fourth-hand information. But Jennifer thinks there might be a grain of truth there.
Yeah, nobody ever interviewed any of these people. A forensic report from the Oregon Crime Lab came back that Sarah had like green flakes all over her body, right, or on her body.
Yeah.
And they said it wasn't standard paint, but if a suspect vehicle was found, then she should, it should be considered.
Okay.
Jennifer admitted this could all be circumstantial. But the more we looked into Nick, the more it seemed like he was a really dangerous driver. Ryan reached a guy named Don Garton, who Nick crashed into about 10 months before Sarah died. It happened on one of the other windy, wooded roads around Rainier.
Could you just tell me what you remember about that? Because I saw it was kind of like a hit and run or something, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what happened. I was on my way home from work, and I'm not sure. I think it was 4:30, 5 o'clock, somewhere around there, p.m., and just turned on Lost Creek Road. Well, on the second corner, I just happened to look up, and I see this guy coming down the road, shitting and getting on the wrong side of the road. I pulled over to the side of the road as far as I could, and anyway, it wasn't far enough, and he hit me head on.
Wow.
So his car ripped my front tire off, tore the mirrors off, broke the window on the driver's side, and spun around in the road, I imagine 4 or 5 times. I was watching.
Don said he was in shock. But before he knew it, the guy who hit him, Nick, was running away.
I looked out and I see this guy get out of the car and open up the trunk, grab a bag, backpack thing, and took off running up towards me. Well, when he went by, I just looked out the broken window and, hey, where are you going?
Don's okay, by the way. Nick's name also came up when we got another tip. Ryan had called the mail carrier who worked out by the Zuber's house to see if she'd seen anything that day. She said no, but that we should talk to her son.
This is Ryan from OPB.
Hi, Ryan. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, man?
Oh, I got my hands full with 2 little ones right now.
Oh.
Her son said he was worried about his safety, so he wanted us to call him Jay. Jay grew up in the same rural part of Columbia County as Sarah.
Sarah was a friend of mine from church and Bible camp and all that when we were younger. Mm-hmm. So it kind of shook me when I heard that she was found dead. So I wanted to get down to the bottom of it.
Jay ran in very different circles from Sarah. When he talked to Ryan, he was fresh out of jail for domestic violence and gun charges, but was trying to turn his life around. He said he wanted to share information he heard from a friend about Nick being involved in Sarah's death. The way Jay told the story, this friend told him one night he was hanging out with Nick.
And so they were sitting around like a little, fire pit in the backyard, and they said something about hitting somebody while they were drunk, driving, and they were not really talking to him too much, and so then he got kind of scared, I guess, and he didn't talk about it for a while. Mm-hmm. But because I'm pretty sure that they confessed that they had hit her or they had done something of the nature of I think we potentially could have killed somebody.
So secondhand information, which is better than fourth-hand information. Jay said he'd been afraid to give this information because he has a past with Nick and thinks he's dangerous. It seemed like possibly good information. We couldn't talk to Jay's friend because he died. So we decided that we had to go find Nick ourselves. One day, when we were out in Rainier, we started poking around the trailer park where we thought he lived.
Keep going. This is no number.
30.
What the fuck is 8?
8 must be way down in the end, I bet.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
keep counting down.
13.
14. It's like the one that we can't find is 8.
19. Oh, we're going the wrong direction now.
Well, how does this make any sense?
We finally figured out which one was Nick's, but when we knocked, no one answered. We tried next door.
Hey there. Hello. Sorry to bother you. Is this number 8?
No, it's number 9. I want to say number 8 is that one.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, this is.
She didn't know Nick, but she did know the woman who, according to the police tip, talked about being in the car with Nick that night. Small towns, man. She gave us her info. Turns out the woman in the car with Nick is the mother of some of his kids. They broke up a while ago. She told Ryan that they were still together in March of 2019. Sometimes they stayed a half hour away in Washington State, and they didn't have a car. We poked around a little more, but this hit-and-run theory was starting to fray. Nick's in prison. That's why we couldn't find him that day at the trailer park. He was convicted for beating up his kid. We mailed him a letter as a last-ditch effort to get in touch. There's no doubt that he's a terrible driver and a violent person. But a fourth-hand phone call, a second-hand conversation, a home surveillance camera showing headlights, I don't know. None of it was really getting us there. I have to just say, Ryan and I have done a lot of investigative work together over the years. We've revealed far-right influences on a Nevada bombing, uncovered the underlying racism that put a man on death row. But we've never filed the sheer volume of public records requests on any project like we did on this one. We filed requests across Columbia County, asking for every record we could find on Nick and on people who hung out with Nick. One day, unexpectedly, all that requesting paid off with some new information. A request we made to St. Helens police turned up a police report that connected Nick to Sarah's death. It was dated December 27th, 2024. It detailed a meeting between 2 St. Helens police officers and a paid confidential police informant. The informant told the St. Helens officers that he had information about Sarah Zuber's death. He said one night he'd been hanging out at a shady motel with 2 other people when the Sarah Zuber case came up. And those 2 people said Nick had directly told them that he, quote, fucked up and knew he hit something that night. Later, he said he realized he hit Sarah. It was similar to the story Jay told us, but it was also weird. This was a new report in a case that had otherwise gone stale, and it seemed like a mistake that we got it. The only way to know was to ask the investigators. We called Columbia County Sheriff's Detective Dave Peabody and asked if we could have a chat. When you sit down to interview Detective Peabody, sometimes you gotta let him warm up a little.
You're not recording this, are you?
Well, I can.
He doesn't have a lot of experience with the press.
I am recording now. I was getting my levels here. We're good to go?
Don't record yet.
Okay, all right. Can we start the interview?
In just a second.
Okay.
And I think he liked giving us a bit of a hard time.
Yeah,
I think, to be honest, you're not recording, right?
Can I record?
Not yet.
Can we record the parts about you?
But when we sat down this time, he seemed like he was ready to open up. Finally.
So,
All right.
kick it off, man.
Let's get down to business here.
We wasted no time once we started talking. We wanted to know about Nick, but we were being careful how we backed into this question. He didn't know we had this report.
Last time we spoke to you, you had said you had just gotten new information. Because I think we talked in like maybe I think we talked in like January, February maybe.
I do remember that comment.
Did that turn into anything?
Not yet.
Okay.
We've put forth some effort on that, actually put money out on that, and that has not come to fruition yet.
He was talking about Nick here. and paying an informant. And it was at this point we decided to stop hiding what we knew.
But when you're working with members of the community, whether they be on the good side of the law or the bad, but we don't care where we get our facts as long as they're good facts. I mean, if you get a lead, you follow that lead. But it can be harder sometimes when you're dealing, say, with informants. That can be harder.
So I think I know what we're talking about. We got a record from the St. Helens police that I want to say like in the late December, detective, or I don't know if he's a detective, Officer Gaston and a couple people met with 2 informants about. Is this what we're talking about, or? I didn't actually bring that report, but we can pull it up on.
These are the kind of things that hurt an investigation.
This report with Nick's name in it was the best lead the police had, as far as we could tell.
Are we good reporters?
Yeah, you're good reporters. You're digging stuff up. But the problem would be that once the case goes from inactive to active, we shouldn't be releasing any facts. We shouldn't be releasing any reports. That report should not be released.
Yeah.
And if it was released, it should come here and be released. It shouldn't be.
But the more we thought about this report, the weirder it seemed. The lead detective, Dave Peabody, is with the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. It's his case. But this report came from the St. Helens Police Department. And one of the 2 St. Helens officers in the report is named Dylan Gaston. He's married to one of the leaders of the Justice for Sarah Zuber group, the very same group pushing this theory that Nick is at fault for Sarah's death.
Do you find it odd, though, that he didn't record that interview? And also that his wife is a part of the Justice for Sarah Zuber group, who is very much pushing that is the guy.
I try to keep that completely separate and out of my mind. Yes, I know that. I don't know Gaston's wife. I know Dylan. I've worked with him on cases. I think Dylan is very good. Okay? I don't know his wife. I couldn't tell you where he lives. We've never done anything off the job. But as an officer, he's done well. And I've had good outcomes with him. And I enjoy working with him.
We asked Peabody why an officer unaffiliated with the case, but with a lot of personal investment in solving it, didn't record the interview with this informant. Peabody didn't know why and was mostly concerned with the information about the informant getting out.
I'm beyond disappointed. I can't even convey how disappointed I am that was released to you guys. Glad you guys know how to do your job. But, again, what does that do for the outcome of this?
Well, maybe it allows us to talk a little bit more candidly about how viable of a suspect you think is.
At this point, I'm not going to go either way on that. I mean, and not because I'm holding back on you. It's just I can't tell you he's a focus of anything at this point in time. Is he on the radar? Is he a person of interest? I suppose you could say that. But do I have enough to push me over the edge to say he did it? No. Has the informant followed through? Have we reached out? Yes. Have we had contact? Absolutely. Have we actually put money out? Yes.
This report is still secondhand information, but it shows there really is an active investigation happening. And yet, it doesn't make a ton of sense at this point, 6 years after Sarah died. Because when you look at Sarah's autopsy, there's nothing that screams hit and run. We went back to the autopsy to take another look. Maybe we were missing something? Peabody was only going to tell us so much about their reasons for looking at Nick. We decided to dig further into the medical examiner's findings and understand if a hit and run was even possible. The day after Sarah Zuber died, Dr. Rebecca Milius conducted an autopsy. As a recap, Milius found a couple of hairline fractures in Sarah's neck, high blood alcohol content, and some scrapes and bruises on her body. Initially, she would conclude that Sarah's cause of death was undetermined. Just before 8 p.m., that night of the autopsy, she wrote an email to Detective Peabody. This is a voice actor reading these emails, by the way.
Dave, I've looked at her photos and neck films again, and I just can't fathom how, if she were struck by a car and ended up in the ditch, she can have no other blunt force trauma. Those faint purple contusions on her hip and the minor abrasions just don't get me there. And she doesn't have enough soft tissue hemorrhage for the neck fracture to have preceded death long enough for her to have brain edema.
Milius told Peabody she'd had other doctors look at her findings and
we all keep coming back to a possible overdose and subsequently body dumped into the ditch. It's weird and concerning.
Lab tests would come back negative for drugs. Peabody shared photos of Sarah on the side of the road, and Milius wrote back the next day, doubling down on this idea of a body dump.
That looks less to me like a landing after being struck by a car than a dump, but I suppose stranger things have happened.
On that first full day of the investigation, the medical examiner thought Sarah's body could have been dumped, which could be one way to explain why none of those people who drove by saw her on the side of the road. Maybe she wasn't there all night. When Dr. Milius wrote that Sarah's cause of death was undetermined, she noted that she would change the cause of death if the police gave her any clarifying information. And she did, 10 months later. She said Sarah died from alcohol and hypothermia. We wanted to understand what clarifying information she received to change her mind. But the problem was, Dr. Milius wouldn't sit down for an interview. Through a spokesperson, she said she might consider a written interview. Frustrating, but we'd take what we could get. We sent over 16 questions and hoped we'd hear back. In the meantime, we got another medical examiner to review the reports on Sarah. Dr. Terry Haddix is a board-certified forensic and neuropathologist who's been performing autopsies and testifying in court about her work since the 1990s. She reviewed Sarah's autopsy, photos from that autopsy, police reports, and photos from the scene. In many ways, Dr. Haddix found herself in agreement with Dr. Milius's findings.
There are no broken bones, there's no leg fractures, there's no rib fractures. To me, I don't see any stigmata externally or internally that speaks to a car pedestrian fatality.
She also agreed that there was nothing about the autopsy to support that Sarah was hit by a car.
There was a reference to these kind of small, I believe, like teal-colored flakes that were tested and tried to, figure out what that was and stuff. And it just, I understand what you're saying, that, like, it does sound like the cause of death is the alcohol and hypothermia, but what are the circumstances leading up to that? I just wonder if maybe it's possible that her body was dumped.
I mean, it's possible, but is it provable? I mean, and the stuff that they're identifying on her clothing, the other things you would want to know is other environments in which she'd been in.
But pretty quickly into our conversation with Dr. Haddix, she said,
there are some things within the autopsy report that I have a little bit of a concern about.
Haddix wasn't sure about the hairline fracture in Sarah's neck.
I have to tell you, I don't clearly see anything on the x-rays that are provided there. And if the call is being made based upon if it's the overall x-rays, the ones where it just shows, the head and shows the torso, things like that, I certainly don't see anything there.
These x-rays didn't really show a clear fracture in Sarah's neck. It wasn't adding up.
Actually, let's stay on
head and neck injury. So you talked briefly about this contusion on Sarah's head.
One question.
Oh, go ahead.
I do have one
Sure.
question, and this, because this was on the right side and she's found on her left side.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Yeah. Did her sister move her by any chance?
No.
Did she roll her or just find her as
In police reports, we could see that both Katie and the neighbor told the police they couldn't move Sarah. Her body was too stiff. Dr. Haddix was asking about this because Sarah had a small contusion on the right side of her head, but Sarah was found lying on her left side, not her right. So it was another injury that was kind of a question mark.
Obviously, without her being moved in some fashion by someone, and that potentially raises the possibility, did someone go up and try to move her body after she collapsed or something like that?
So, just to recap, Dr. Haddix didn't think her neck was fractured based on the x-rays we provided to her. And she had questions around why Sarah had an injury on the right side of her head, but was found lying on her left side. We talked to Dr. Haddix for a long time. She said whatever happened to Sarah just isn't very clear. And that's evidenced by the first autopsy, which listed Sarah's cause of death as undetermined.
Would a pathologist ever leave the cause of death, cause or manner, as undetermined? If you're just like, hey, I don't know if there's enough evidence here to say one way or the other. I would like to hear you speak on that.
The short answer is absolutely yes. There are circumstances where, despite best efforts, they may be able to identify somebody who, what happened to an individual, or at least where that individual might have been known hours prior to their death, but they can't really narrow down anything that actually happens in the immediate proximity of the death. The thing about saying something's undetermined means that at a later point in time, if more information is brought forward, you can then factor that in and say, okay, there are a number of people who they'll say the cause of death is undetermined, but the manner of death is homicide. And when you say something like that, you think, well, wait a minute, you don't know how they died. How do you know it's a homicide? Well, you then have to take into consideration the circumstances. And so that's more frequently what needs greater investigation, are the circumstances or the scene or examination of physical evidence to be able to say with certainty, look, despite this effort, we can't identify anything else that appears to have had a role in the death, and nothing that raises flags like, aha. So, yes, undetermined is a very reasonable thing. Now, some people think that that's you shouldn't have a lot of those. Let me put it that way. If you're falling back on undetermined, then that means you're not really working hard enough to try to flesh out all possibilities.
Dr. Milius wrote in Sarah's first autopsy that if clarifying information was given to her, she could amend the autopsy to reflect a different cause of death. It was one of our biggest questions, and it turns out it was for Haddix, too.
I'm not clear what happened between October and January.
Yeah, I think that's...
Have you spoken to the pathologist, or is she willing
not
to
yet.
talk to you?
I hope so. I hope she will.
It took about a month, but we finally heard back from Dr. Milius. She provided long, written responses to our questions. We asked Dr. Milius about her communications with Rebecca Zuber in the early days of the investigation. And again, this is a voice actor reading these answers.
I did speak with Rebecca Zuber. She was expectedly distraught and looking for an explanation. I answered questions about findings at autopsy and provided what little information I had at that time. I had been told that Sarah was the victim of a hit-and-run accident and was listening for any more information regarding that or other scenarios to explain how a healthy young lady without significant injury, who reportedly did not drink or do drugs, had died.
Milius explained that there was early confusion between what she was being told and what the autopsy findings told her about what happened to Sarah.
In the Zuber case, much of what was initially reported turned out to be incorrect. First, as mentioned above, I was told it was a hit and run. I was also told that Sarah did not use alcohol or drugs. Given that context, I expected to find injury consistent with having been hit by a motor vehicle and of significant degree to have caused her death. I found no trauma at autopsy sufficient to have caused death, nothing even close.
Milius underlined those last 3 words, nothing even close. She is certain that Sarah was not hit by a car. And from here on out, what Dr. Milius told us were bombshells. So hang on. We asked her about why her first autopsy read that the minor blunt force injuries found on post-mortem examination are of degree sufficient to have caused death. Later, we noticed when she changed Sarah's autopsy, that was changed to say her injuries were not of a degree sufficient to have caused death. So, which was it? Were they or weren't they? Milius explained.
That was a typographical error.
A typo. Milius said she corrected the typo in the amended autopsy report. But that didn't happen until 10 months later. For nearly a year, plenty of people drew conclusions from that typo, which made it seem like Sarah had injuries that could have killed her. But that's not the worst of it. Then we asked about the neck fractures. Dr. Haddix had said she wasn't clear they were there. And to our question, Dr. Milius said,
I am 100% certain that the fractures do not exist.
The neck fracture? She says it's not real. Never was real. So while Milius corrected her typo to say Sarah's injuries were not a contributing factor to her death, she did not remove the mention of this neck fracture. Sarah Zuber's official autopsy still says she had a fractured neck. Milius explained that her office used an old X-ray machine at the time, and she did other X-rays to confirm Sarah's neck wasn't broken.
I am a parent, and my heart breaks every time a child comes under my care here. I'm sure I can't come close to imagining the level of grief and anguish that Sarah's death has brought to her family. I have and still do hold them close in my heart and in my prayers. And again, I am truly sorry for any additional pain caused by the errors in my report.
Sarah Zuber did not have a fractured neck, and her injuries were not severe enough to kill her. Six years later, the medical examiner is telling us she never believed Sarah's neck was fractured, despite 2 reports saying it likely was. These reports influence how people think about this case. Jennifer Massey, the police, but especially the Zubers. No one had ever told them any of these details. So one day, we met them at their home. We told them how Dr. Milius apologized for the many errors in her report.
So Dr. Milius did offer an apology to you for a typo that she made in her original report.
Typo in world history?
Yes.
That said that Sarah's injuries were sufficient to have caused her to die. That was changed in the second autopsy. Our question is,
That'll get your stuff thrown out of court right there.
What do you make of her offering that apology now, but not communicating it to you then?
I think it's a lie. She knows it's not a typo. So I forgive people and I don't, I've moved forward, but I think that's a lie and she knows it was not a typo.
Rebecca Zuber also said she didn't think Dr. Milius was being honest about how she speculated on the cause of Sarah's death in those early days. Milius would call Rebecca and ask questions. But now, Milius said that it was Rebecca who was doing all the speculating, not her.
Was your impression of these conversations that you were putting ideas out or that she was also putting ideas out, I guess? Because I think now she's trying to say, like, oh no, Rebecca was telling me all this stuff and I was just listening.
No, she was asking questions and putting ideas out. Like, for instance, the the head injury. And I mean, we were both communicating together, trying to find answers, because I had no idea.
Questions and answers and back and forth
I had
trying
no
to figure things
idea.
out.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
It wasn't the only part of Milius's report that Rebecca disputed. I read her answer aloud to the Zubers.
Dr. Milius said, in regard to the first part of your question, yes, I did speak with Rebecca Zuber. She was expectedly distraught and looking for an explanation. I recall she shared a theory that Sarah was choked out by a friend. She said Sarah and her friends would play a game where they'd place a forearm around another person's neck and apply pressure to induce loss of consciousness. This was new information, and I could not definitively rule that out as a potential cause of death. That type of hold can cause death without evidence of injury. I did relay that theory to the detective in Columbia County.
No,
that's true.
That's not true.
And then we explained how Milius said she never believed there was a neck fracture.
She said she is now 100% certain that Sarah did not have a neck fracture and that she never had a neck fracture.
What are those based on? Just her beliefs or scientific studies? Or?
I mean, my question is, was this ever communicated to you?
That she did not have a neck fracture.
There is no neck fracture.
No. No, it's like the very first day when we were in the sheriff's office, the very next, right away they go, your daughter died of a broken neck.
I heard that because
it might be a shadow.
We
or
were
something.
told that there was 2 neck fractures, and she had said, no, it's more like 1. I only think that there's 1. So I can't remember her ever saying there's no neck fracture. But
as we read more of Dr. Milius's answers to the Zubers, Rebecca took notes on a yellow legal pad. She returned to what Milius said about Sarah being choked and pointed out another reason she didn't believe the responses.
I never said that. I know exactly because I hear that stuff, that they do that choking game. Yeah, sure. I've heard about that.
I've heard that too.
And I had never heard of that before. I don't know, a few years ago I heard about it.
My wife doesn't.
Yes.
And that makes no sense because they did that autopsy right away. Like, if anybody had a discussion of the choking game, wouldn't that have been later on?
That's a great point.
That's
they
an
did the
excellent
autopsy
point.
the next day.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have even spoken to you at that point.
No. I mean, so obviously there's like huge lies in here. Or I guess I shouldn't say that. Maybe she is, when you have missing pieces of a story, you kind of just fill in the blanks. And maybe that's what she's doing.
It's hard to understand how a report could say for 6 years that a person's neck was likely fractured, and then a doctor can just say, nope, not true. Detective Dave Peabody was in the room for Sarah's autopsy. He was told about the neck fracture when he was in that room with Sarah's body. We, of course, went back to Dr. Milius with more questions. But a spokesperson for the Oregon State Medical Examiner's Office took over for her, said Dr. Milius was too busy to answer any more follow-up questions about Sarah Zuber. We had asked if the Zubers were ever told the neck fracture didn't exist, if there was an autopsy report that was updated to say it didn't exist, and what clarifying information Milius received in the first place to change her report. They didn't answer any of it. We started to wonder what was really going on here. The medical examiner was telling a story about the mistakes in her report that tried to fill in the missing pieces, as Rebecca Zuber put it. But those stories didn't add up. The same was true when we looked at the story of Nick as a driver in a hit and run. Jennifer Massey pointed to Nick as the culprit. In our first interview, she told us she just wanted the facts.
I don't want hearsay. I want evidence, and whatever they redact, that just tells me that they're redacting something for a reason and we need to dig harder in it.
But the facts that supported her theory Nick was involved relied on hearsay. She made a promise that transparency would solve the Zuber case and put a stop to all this speculation. And while our own reporting had brought new transparency to this case, it still didn't bring any concrete answers. We could see the mistakes that happened, but it didn't tell us what happened to Sarah. What we didn't know when we first sat down with Jennifer Massey is that soon she'd have more power than even the police to get those answers to the Zubers. Because soon, she'd be mayor.
I, Jennifer Massey.
I, Jennifer Massey.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution.
That I will support the Constitution.
That's next time. Hush is reported, written, and produced by me, Leah Satilli, and Ryan Hass. Music by Joe Preston. Our editors were Sage Van Wing and Anna Griffin. Stephen Cray mixed this episode, and Nalene Silva was our audio engineer. Our show art is by Dana Ryerson. Photography by Christina Wentz-Graff. Additional art and marketing guidance from Van Cooley and Jennifer McCormick. Tony Schick fact-checked this episode. Legal review was by Rebecca Morris. We had public records assistance from John Bile. Website production for this series by Sukjot Sal. Voice work in this episode was by Robin L.K. Thanks to Joni Audenland, Peter Frickwright, Jen Chavez, and Tony Schick for helping shape this series. Thanks to all the members who make podcasts at OPB possible. Visit the Hush homepage on OPB's website at opb.org/hush. You can also email us with tips for future reporting at hush@opb.org. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Or just tell a friend. It helps the show grow and is a great way to support our work.